North Korea. The very name conjures images of immense military parades, stoic leaders, and a society sealed off from the rest of the world. Officially known as the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, or DPRK, it remains one of the most enigmatic and misunderstood nations on the planet. For decades, it has operated under a unique political system, often referred to as a totalitarian state, built upon an ideology of self-reliance known as Yush. This isolation, both self-imposed and a result of international sanctions, has created a country that is a puzzle to outsiders. What is life really like for the millions of people who call it home? The stories that trickle out are often fragmented, painting a picture of hardship, control, and unwavering loyalty. Unraveling the truth about North Korea is a complex task. The information we receive is heavily filtered, either through the state's own propaganda machine or through the accounts of defectors and observers peering in from the outside. This creates a narrative filled with contradictions and gaps, making it difficult to form a complete and unbiased understanding. Is it a rogue state threatening global peace with its nuclear ambitions? Or a proud nation defending its sovereignty against powerful adversaries? Is it a socialist paradise as its government claims? Or a land of immense suffering and oppression? The reality, as is often the case, is likely far more nuanced and lies somewhere between these extreme portrayals, hidden behind layers of carefully constructed secrecy. To truly comprehend the North Korea of today, we must first journey back in time. The country's present situation is not an accident of history, but the culmination of centuries of cultural development, foreign invasions, and intense ideological struggles. The Korean peninsula has a long and storied past, marked by periods of great artistic and scientific achievement, as well as devastating wars. Understanding this deep history is crucial to grasping the Korean identity, the deep-seated desire for independence, and the historical traumas that continue to shape the mindset of the leaders and the people of North Korea. This historical context provides the foundation upon which the modern state was built. In this exploration, we will peel back the layers of mystery that surround this isolated nation. We will delve into its ancient origins, tracing the rise and fall of powerful kingdoms that once ruled the land. We will examine the painful period of Japanese colonization and the devastating division of the peninsula that followed the Second World War. By charting its course from ancient history to its modern-day complexities, we can begin to assemble a clearer picture of North Korea. This journey will take us through its geography, its culture, its political system, and the daily lives of its people, offering a comprehensive look inside the world's most reclusive country. To begin our journey, let us first locate North Korea on the world map. The country occupies the northern half of the Korean peninsula, a strategic piece of land extending south from the Asian mainland. The peninsula is flanked by bodies of water that have played a significant role in its history and economy. To the west lies the Korea Bay. The Yellow Sea separates it from China. To the east is the Sea of Japan. Koreans refer to it as the East Sea. These waters have been vital for fishing and trade. They've also been avenues for cultural exchange, and at times for foreign invasion, shaping the nation's destiny over millennia. North Korea covers about 120,540 square kilometers. That's roughly 46,541 square miles, about the size of Pennsylvania, a little smaller than England. Despite its modest size, its location gives it immense geopolitical significance. It shares a long land border with powerful northern neighbors. Most of that border, 1,416 kilometers, is with China, defined primarily by the Yalu River and the Tumen River. In the far northeast, there's a very short, historically important, 19-kilometer border with Russia. This position has placed North Korea at a crossroads of major powers for centuries. The southern part of the peninsula is occupied by the Republic of Korea, South Korea. The two Koreas are separated by the Demilitarized Zone, the DMZ, a 4-kilometer-wide, 250-kilometer-long strip, a stark reminder of division for over 70 years, a scar left by the Cold War that has yet to heal. The terrain of North Korea is predominantly mountainous. Mountain ranges and uplands crisscross the country, with deep, narrow valleys. Only about 20% of the land is arable, plains and lowlands in the west and coasts. The rugged landscape has made agriculture challenging and isolated communities, but it has also provided natural defenses, central to military doctrine and a sense of impenetrable sovereignty. The story of North Korea does not begin in the 20th century. To understand its modern identity, we must look deep into the ancient history of the Korean peninsula. Long before the division into North and South, the land was home to powerful and sophisticated kingdoms. The earliest period of recorded history is often defined by the three kingdoms of Korea: Goguryeo, Baekje, Silla. These kingdoms emerged around the 1st century BCE and competed for control of the peninsula for hundreds of years. They were distinct entities, each with its own unique culture, language, dialects, and political systems, yet they shared a common ethnic and cultural heritage. Goguryeo was the largest and most powerful of the three, a formidable warrior state in the north extending into Manchuria. Its people were renowned for their equestrian skills and martial prowess. To its southwest was Baekje, a prosperous maritime kingdom controlling fertile plains. Baekje was a cultural hub, known for refined arts, transmitting Buddhism to Japan, and transmitting Chinese characters to Japan. In the southeast corner was Silla, initially the smallest and weakest kingdom. Power constantly shifted, alliances changed and warfare was frequent. For centuries they fought for dominance, each aiming to unite the peninsula. This era saw conflict and major cultural and technological advances. Buddhism was introduced to the peninsula and it reshaped Korean art, architecture, and philosophy. These interactions laid the groundwork for a unified Korean identity. Ultimately, Silla succeeded in unifying the peninsula. By allying with Tang China, Silla conquered Baekje in 660 and Goguryeo in 668. That ended the three kingdoms and began the unified Silla dynasty. For the first time, the majority of the peninsula was ruled by one native power. Unification fostered a more cohesive national identity and culture. The legacy of these kingdoms, especially Goguryeo's proud, defiant spirit, still echoes in North Korean ideology today. Following the collapse of unified Silla and the brief turmoil of the later three kingdoms, the peninsula was reunified in 936 by the Goryeo dynasty. It was actually from the name Goryeo that the Western name Korea is derived. This dynasty ruled for nearly 5 centuries. However, by the late 14th century, Goryeo was weakened by internal corruption and external pressures, particularly from Mongol influence. It was in this climate of instability that a brilliant and ambitious general named Yi Seong-gi saw his opportunity. In 1392, he staged a nearly bloodless coup, overthrew the Goryeo king, and established a new dynasty. This new dynasty was named Joseon. The Joseon dynasty would go on to rule the Korean peninsula for over 500 years, from 1392 until 1897, making it one of the longest ruling dynastic lines in world history. General Yi, who became King Taejo, moved the capital from Kaesong to a new strategically chosen location called Hanyang, which is modern-day Seoul. The Joseon rulers established Neo-Confucianism as the state ideology. It created a highly structured and hierarchical society, with a strong emphasis on education, civil service examinations, and filial piety. Under Joseon rule, Korea experienced remarkable cultural and scientific advancements. King Sejong the Great oversaw the creation of the native Korean alphabet, Hangul, in 1443. The era also saw innovations in astronomy, printing technology with movable metal type, and military science, including the development of the famed turtle ships. The Joseon dynasty solidified the borders of Korea into what they are today, and fostered a distinct national consciousness, creating the unified and culturally homogeneous nation that would later face the trials of colonialism and division in the 20th century. For over 500 years, the Joseon dynasty had maintained Korea's sovereignty. As the 19th century closed, that independence began to crumble. Weakened by internal political strife and a strict isolationist policy, the dynasty was ill-equipped for the industrial age. Western imperial powers expanded across Asia. A modernizing, ambitious Japan eyed Korea as a strategic stepping stone. Korea, the Hermit Kingdom, was being forced open. 1876, Japan used gunboat diplomacy, forcing the Japan-Korea Ganghwa Treaty. The treaty opened Korean ports to Japanese trade and granted Japanese citizens extraterritorial rights. This was the first of many blows to Korea's autonomy. Control of Korea led to direct conflict. First Sino-Japanese War, Japan emerged victorious. A decade later, Russo-Japanese War. Japan defeated Russia, removing the last major rival to its ambitions. With rivals defeated and consent secured, Japan formalized control. 1905, Japan forced the Korean emperor to sign the Yulsa Treaty, making Korea a Japanese protectorate. Korea lost diplomatic sovereignty. 5 years later, the final tragic end of Korean independence. On August 22, 1910, the Japan-Korea Annexation Treaty was signed, extinguishing the Korean Empire and making the peninsula a colony. This began brutal colonial rule that lasted 35 years. The Japanese administration governed with an iron fist, seeking to erase Korean identity and assimilate the population. Korean language banned in schools, people forced to learn and speak Japanese. Late 1930s, Koreans forced to abandon traditional names, adopt Japanese-style surnames, economically exploited, farmland seized, natural resources plundered, millions mobilized as forced laborers. WB II intensified suffering. An estimated 200,000 women and girls, mostly Korean, forced into sexual slavery for the Japanese military. These comfort women became one of the period's deepest wounds. 35 years of rule = national trauma, oppression, exploitation, a desperate struggle for survival, leaving deep scars on the Korean psyche. In August 1945, World War II came to a close. Japan's 35-year colonial rule over Korea finally ended. For the Korean people, it was a moment of euphoric liberation and a promise of renewed independence. However, this joy was tragically short-lived. 2 young American Army officers were given the urgent task of proposing a dividing line. They chose the 38th parallel of latitude as a convenient boundary. It was intended as a temporary military demarcation. The Soviets would accept the surrender of Japanese forces north of the line, and the Americans would do so to the south. The division along the 38th parallel, initially conceived as temporary, quickly began to harden. The Cold War was dawning. In the north, the Soviets backed communist leaders, including a young anti-Japanese guerrilla fighter named Kim Il-sung. In the south, the Americans supported anti-communist figures, many of whom were conservative nationalists. By 1948, this division was formalized. The southern zone became the Republic of Korea. The northern zone became the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. The arbitrary line on a map had become an iron curtain in Asia, tragically dividing a people who shared a common language, culture, and thousands of years of history. On June 25, 1950, after securing promises of support from Joseph Stalin and Mao Zedong, Kim Il-sung launched a massive surprise invasion of the South. The KPA captured Seoul in just 3 days. The Korean War had begun, a brutal conflict that would shape the nation's destiny for generations. The United Nations passed a resolution authorizing military intervention. UN forces under General Douglas MacArthur executed a daring amphibious landing at Incheon. UN forces advanced into North Korea. Pushing to the Yalu River, the border with China, Chairman Mao Zedong sent hundreds of thousands of People's Volunteer Army soldiers across the Yalu River. The war descended into a bloody stalemate. Cities on both sides, including Pyongyang and Seoul, were reduced to rubble. Millions of civilians were killed, wounded, or made homeless. After 2 years of grueling trench warfare and protracted negotiations, an armistice was signed on July 27, 1953. The agreement established a ceasefire and created the Demilitarized Zone, DMZ, near the original 38th parallel. The war ended with no clear victor, devastating the peninsula and locking its division. For North Korea, the war became a national trauma and cornerstone of ideology. The regime used the destruction to foster deep anti-Americanism and justify its obsession with military strength. When Kim Il-sung died of a heart attack in 1994, Kim Jong-il inherited supreme power. Known by the title Dear Leader, his ascension to power, well, it coincided with a period of profound crisis for North Korea. The collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991 had ended the flow of crucial aid and subsidized trade, sending the North Korean economy into a catastrophic downward spiral. This economic collapse was compounded by a series of devastating natural disasters, which crippled the country's already inefficient agricultural sector. The result was a horrific famine in the mid to late 1990s, a period North Koreans refer to as the Arduous March. It is estimated that hundreds of thousands, perhaps even millions of people perished. The state's public distribution system completely broke down. This period saw the spontaneous emergence of illicit private markets, or jangmadang, fundamentally altering the relationship between the state and its citizens. Despite the immense suffering of his people, Kim Jong-il prioritized a military-first policy known as Songun, directing the nation's scarce resources toward the Korean People's Army. The most significant aspect of this policy was the aggressive pursuit of a nuclear weapons program. In 2006, North Korea conducted its first successful nuclear test. Kim Jong-il ruled for 17 years until his death from a heart attack in December 2011, leaving behind a country that was more isolated, impoverished, but now a de facto nuclear power. Following the death of Kim Jong-il in 2011, power passed to his youngest son, Kim Jong-un. He was in his late 20s and largely unknown outside North Korea. Kim Jong-un moved swiftly and ruthlessly to consolidate power. He purged and executed several high-ranking officials including his uncle Jang Song-thaek. Under Kim Jong-un, North Korea pursued the Byung-jin policy, parallel development of the economy and nuclear weapons. New construction appeared, high-rise apartments, amusement parks, and modern department stores. Simultaneously, he dramatically accelerated weapons development. A series of increasingly sophisticated ballistic missiles followed, including intercontinental ballistic missiles, ICBMs, theoretically capable of reaching the mainland United States. After extreme tension and threats of war in 2017, he abruptly pivoted to diplomacy. In 2018 and 2019, he held historic summits with the President of South Korea and with the President of the United States. He became the first North Korean leader to meet a sitting American president. The summits made headlines and moments of high drama but ultimately failed to produce a breakthrough on denuclearization. Today, Kim Jong-un presides over contradictions, a state that possesses nuclear weapons but struggles to feed its people, yet remaining one of the most closed-off and repressive societies on Earth. The capital city of Pyongyang is the showcase of North Korea, meticulously designed to project power, modernity, and socialist utopia. It is home to the nation's elite, high-ranking party officials, military officers, and their families. Beyond the capital, other cities are industrial and administrative hubs. Life in provincial cities is vastly different. Infrastructure is often in disrepair. North Korea's population is about 26 million people. The state governs through a totalitarian system. The Korean Workers' Party is present in every workplace, school, and neighborhood, implementing directives and keeping the population under surveillance. Rivers are crucial for agriculture and industry. The Amnok or Yalu River is the longest and most significant, forming much of the border with China. North Korea operates under a centrally planned or command economy. The main pillars of the North Korean economy have traditionally been heavy industry and mining. The country's agricultural sector is organized into collective farms. The main crops are rice, maize, potatoes, and soybeans. Despite the government's emphasis on food self-sufficiency, North Korea has faced chronic food shortages for decades due to a lack of arable land and a severe lack of modern farming equipment, fuel, and fertilizer. The GDP of North Korea is difficult to calculate accurately. Most international estimates place its GDP per annum in the range of $1,700 to $1,800 per capita, making it one of the poorest countries in the world. The money in North Korea is called the North Korean won on the black market. It's often more than 8,000 KPW for $1. To give you an idea, $1 is about 83 Indian rupees. This means that on the black market, 1 Indian rupee would be worth around 96 North Korean won. The only language spoken in North Korea is Korean. The government has really worked hard to get rid of foreign words. They've almost completely stopped using Chinese characters. North Korean food has grown to have its own special touches. One of the most famous North Korean dishes is naengmyeon, which is cold buckwheat noodles. North Korea's identity and foreign policy are dominated by its military. The Korean People's Army, or KPA, is one of the largest standing armies in the world. Geography plays a critical role in defense. Mount Paektu, active volcano on the China border, sacred in myth as the Korean birthplace. Propaganda claims it as the revolution's sacred mountain. Officially, North Korea is an atheist state. In reality, religious practice is severely restricted. There are virtually no Hindus or Muslims in North Korea. Despite economic hardships, North Korea reports a very high literacy rate, officially near 100%. The system is a powerful tool for ideological indoctrination. The country's international dialing code is +850, but international calls are tightly monitored and generally banned for the public. Our journey through the history and reality of North Korea reveals a nation steeped in profound contradictions. It's a country that boasts of its self-reliance, yet has historically depended on foreign aid for its survival. The 20th century shattered that unity, first through brutal Japanese colonization, then through ideological division by Cold War powers. The DPRK was born from this trauma. It's a nation of 26 million individuals, each with their own hopes, fears, and daily struggles. Understanding North Korea requires us to remember the humanity that lies behind the political curtain. The division of the Korean Peninsula is one of the last remaining scars of the Cold War, a painful separation of a single people that has lasted for more than 7 decades. The Hermit Kingdom remains shrouded in mystery, but by continuing to look closely, we can begin to see the people within.